So hey everybody, here we are about ready to install Ubuntu server, an exciting part in our journey here. And of course, since we're installing an operating system, I can't use any sort of screen capture software. So I've set up an external monitor with a video camera because remember, I'm setting up Ubuntu server on a laptop computer. Hopefully you can follow along on your own laptop or desktop computer. And so I've set up this external monitor with a camera so that you can see everything that I'm doing while I'm doing it. Now, I've already covered how, whether you're using a USB, a CD, or a DVD to install Ubuntu server, you're going to need to get into your boot menu. Now, you can see here my little boot menu option for my particular model of PC. All I had to do was click the left mouse button on this particular laptop to get the option for my boot menu. And then I could access my boot menu. Now, it's going to be different on every system. If you have trouble getting into the boot menu, just get in touch with me and I would be happy to help you find that and walk you through that process. Now, I'll be installing Ubuntu server from a CD or DVD. In this case, it is a DVD, burned to DVD-R. And you can use USB. You would just select USB here instead of CD or DVD. Now, after selecting this, we're going to see the Ubuntu server installation screen come up. It's going to ask for us to select our language, which in this case is going to be English. And then use the Enter or the Return key to select Install Ubuntu server. It takes a few moments and hesitates a little bit. If you get this black screen and this text, that's okay. But if you get a black screen with text that says something about processor architecture error, then you may be trying to install a 64-bit operating system, the 64-bit version of Ubuntu server on a 32-bit machine. So if you get that error, just know that it's because you have a 32-bit processor and you're trying to install a 64-bit version of Ubuntu server on there. Try a 32-bit version if you're getting an error, and if you're currently using a 64-bit version, that is, try using the 32-bit version and see if that resolves the error first. So another way to say it might be, if you're encountering an error, go ahead and try the 32-bit version, see if that clears things up. Now again, I'll select my language and country, which in this case is the United States. It can automatically detect your keyboard layout here. You really don't need to do that if you have a standard keyboard, so we're going to say no. My keyboard is an English standard US keyboard. Of course, if you were in the UK, you would select English UK and whatnot and so forth. And again, English US there. Now it's detecting the hardware. And during this installation, we're going to walk through everything step by step. So don't worry about any of these screens. If you've never installed an operating system before, it's perfectly fine. We're going to walk through everything together. If you encounter errors or you see screens that are not coming up here, following along with what we're doing here, if you need any kind of help, just reach out to me and send me a message, let me know, and I would be happy to help as soon as I can. Overall, the installation really doesn't take that long. It will depend on the computer that you're installing Ubuntu server on, but in general, it's really not going to take too long. The whole process will take about 30 minutes. And again, I will film this entire time, and then I'll actually break this up into two parts for a little bit easier viewing. But I want you to see the entire installation process so that you can follow along with me. And now it's detecting our network hardware, and in this case I'm using the wireless card. So you can see here it's asking me to choose either the Ethernet port, which is ETH0, or the wireless card, which is WLAN 0. And again, you may have more network interfaces than I have here, but ETH0 or ETH followed by a number, that's going to be an Ethernet port, and WLAN followed by a number is going to be a wireless card. And I'm going to be using wireless during this install. If you choose to do ETH0, all you have to do is plug in a network cable, an Ethernet cable to your computer, and you'll that has internet access, and you'll be fine. For those of you doing wireless, however, I want to walk you through that process because there's a few extra steps here. So now I'm going to be selecting my wireless network. I will tell you on this screen here, if you're not sure whether it's WEP or WPA, it's probably WPA. Older devices tend to use WEP. It's probably going to be WPA here if you're not sure, so try that. So enter your password here and then select continue for your wireless network. Host name. This is very important for a server. How do you want your server to be known over the network? Obviously, you're going to have an IP address, but what is the host name that you want to use? I recommend that you choose something that's simple and easy to remember. In my case, I'm just going to call this test serve for test server. You can use test serve as well if you don't know what to call yours. Select the name of your choosing. Just keep it simple, something you'll remember, and continue. Once we get into the shell, you'll be able to see the name of your server, so it's not like this is something that you're going to forget. And here we're putting in our full name for our user account. So this is not the username. This is the full name for the user account. And now we're selecting our username. I'm going to use Cody there. You will have to type your username in manually when you log into Ubuntu server. So make sure you remember your username. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to go ahead and put in a weak password here. I'm going to show you the screen that comes up. It's going to warn you. You can see here, you entered a password that consists of less than 8 characters, which is considered too weak. You should choose a stronger password. Do you want to use that weak password? Go ahead and say no. It's a good practice just to select a strong password, even for a test server. Just always a good practice and rule of thumb. And I want to prepare you for real-world situations where you will need a strong password. So go ahead and select a strong password now. And as far as passwords go, you generally want capital and lowercase letters along with numbers and at least one special character. You want to avoid words. You can spell words using numbers and things, substituting numbers. You also want it to be longer than 8 characters total to be a strong password. Now it's asking if we want to encrypt the home directory. We're going to go ahead and say no. There's really no reason that we need to encrypt our home directory. Basically, what this is going to mean is that if you choose to encrypt your home directory for your user account, anything that you place within your home directory is not going to be easily accessible by other users or someone who gets into the system. It'll only be accessible essentially by you. So it's just something we don't need right now for our purposes, so we'll select no. Now it's going through a few more processes here, setting the time zone. I'm in Central Time. And what we're coming up on here is our partitioning and the way in which we're going to be installing Ubuntu on the hard drive. And please remember, I've asked you to use a spare laptop or desktop, and understand that the way we're going to be installing Ubuntu server, you're going to lose all of the data that is on your spare laptop or desktop. You also, for convenience sake, should only have one hard drive in the laptop or connected to the desktop. It'll just make things a lot easier during the install. What we'll be selecting here is guided, use entire disk. We're not going to be selecting guided, use entire disk, and set up LVM. LVM stands for Logical Volume Manager, and it's not something that we're going to cover in this tutorial or lecture series. Installing with LVM requires a few more steps for installation, and since it's not necessary, we're going to go a little more simple and just use the entire disk without LVM. Now you'll be selecting the actual disk that you're going to use. This is why I say, for simplicity's sake, you really only need one hard drive in the laptop or desktop that you're using. You can see here a 120 gigabyte hard drive installed in my laptop. That's the only one, so that's the one I'm going to be using, so I will select that one. If you see multiple entries here, that means that you have multiple disks. And it's very important that you understand what we are doing here. All data on this disk is going to be erased. That's what it says here. So all contents of the disk will be lost. You won't be able to retrieve it, at least not easily. So understand what you're getting into here, and know that if you have other operating systems installed, if you have other files on this hard drive, they are all going to be gone. We're going to totally wipe this hard drive. So I'm going to select that drive, and here it's telling you what already exists on the drive. Nothing to do here. You probably won't see this screen because this would mean that you had already installed Linux with LVM before. We do want to remove the existing logical volume data. So if you see that screen, then you would select yes, but you probably won't see that screen. Now this is our final warning screen where it's telling us that it hasn't erased everything yet, but it is about to. So please remember and understand that all data on this disk will be gone. You will lose all the data on this hard drive that you've selected. Do you want to write the changes to disks? If you have any hesitation here, please don't select yes. Please get in touch with me or consult someone else so that you feel confident in what you're doing. Now, I feel confident with what I'm doing, so I will select yes. And once you do that, it's going to start modifying things, partitioning and formatting the hard drive. So we're not going to be able to go back after this point. Now, this next portion will take a little bit of time depending upon your computer, and so we'll go ahead and just transition to the next portion of the install, the next prompt that we'll receive, so that we can keep this video short and succinct. But know that this process here can take anywhere from 5 to 10 plus minutes to complete, but we'll simply skip over this portion while we're waiting for the installation to occur and move on to our next prompt. All right, so the installation is essentially complete at this point. It's doing some things to further configure the system, and right now it's configuring apt. That's going to be what handles packages on Ubuntu server for downloading software. But now it's asking about an HTTP proxy, and if we need an HTTP proxy to access the outside world. In most cases, you won't need it. You will know this information. If you have an HTTP proxy you're running through, you'll have this information. If you don't have a clue what this is talking about, just leave it blank and select continue. Now, we will be talking a lot about apt. You'll sometimes hear me call it apt. And again, that's how we install new software, how we upgrade software, and how we browse for new software on Ubuntu server. So this will take just a little bit, and then I'll come back for the next screen. Okay, so we've come to another screen here that requires our input. This is asking how we want to manage updates on the system and upgrades. We want to select install security updates automatically. It's the most secure, it's the most simple, and so that's what we're going to go with. Now, another screen that will be coming up shortly is going to ask us to select our software. So we get to select from a few standard programs. Here it is now. These are standard programs that people tend to use with Ubuntu server, and so instead of having to install them after everything's already set up, Ubuntu server's pretty nice. It's going to go ahead and install and set these things up for us during the operating system installation. Now, please understand, before you do anything on this screen, hitting the Enter key is going to move us forward. It's going to take you to the next screen. So if you hit Enter now, you wouldn't install any of these software packages. The space bar is what we'll use to select the programs we would like. So just tap the space bar once like I did here, and you see the star that's appeared next to Open SSH Server. We do want that one installed. We also want DNS Server. We don't need Lamper Mail Server. We'll go ahead and install the Print Server and Samba File Server, and we won't need anything else for this course. So now that we're done, we can either scroll down to continue or simply hit the Enter or Return key once you have these 4 packages marked. Now, of course, understand that you could install this software after installing the operating system, but these are just some frequently used programs, and so Ubuntu is helping us out there. hit the enter key and the installation will continue. Okay, we are now done installing software on Ubuntu server, and we've moved on to installing the Grub bootloader. The bootloader is what will handle the management of different operating systems if in fact we were to have other operating systems on this machine. With what we're doing, it's very simple. We're just installing Ubuntu server. And one little tip here, we do want to install the Grub bootloader to the master boot record, so you will want to do that. And but one little helpful tip here is if you ever do want to install Linux and Windows side by side, it is always best to install Windows first. Okay, installation is complete. Congratulations. So it is time to boot into your new system. Remove the USB or the CD or DVD that you've used to install Ubuntu server. Go ahead and remove that now. Whatever you've got, CD, DVD, or USB, and then when you're ready, hit that enter key so that we can continue. It's going to finish up the installation, and once it's done, it will reboot. All of this text that we're seeing here, this is normal. Remember that we're running a server, a lot more like DOS or a command line kind of system. So you're not having any graphical user interface. So here it's just telling us everything starting. You can see one failure there. It's not a big deal. It'll keep going, and we will come to our login terminal. And this is what we've waited for. This is the screen we've been waiting for. This is what Ubuntu server looks like. So congratulations, you've just installed Ubuntu server 14.04.2 LTS successfully. And now we're ready to proceed into actually using the operating system. Really though, this is a big first step, especially if you've never installed an operating system before, or if you've never operated a server before. Congratulations, I'm proud of you. You've done a great job. Let's start digging in and learn how to use the server now. What do you say?